Hello and welcome to Console Shock, retro and modern gaming chat with me, Trev, and Stu. How's it going, Stu?
Hi there, Trev. How you doing? What episode number is it, by the way?
You know what? This is going to be hilarious. This is hilarious. So, I keep forgetting what episode number we're at, or I say it wrong.
Yeah.
When we do this introduction. So I've come to realise that instead of giving myself extra editing work to edit out when I reference the number if it turns out that number's wrong, I'm just going to say, screw it. I'm just going to say Console Shock. You guys work it out for yourselves. It'll be in the teaser image. You guys do the math.
It'll be in the title.
I'm not your secretary, so you can work it out. You know what the title is.
I'm not your episode reading out monkey.
Yeah, I'm better than that. I contribute more to this thing than just the episode number. So
it doesn't really add to the podcast, does it? Knowing the number that we've
You wouldn't think so. I could certainly confirm that it'll be in the high 80s. It will definitely be in the high 80s.
We both know that. It's in the 80s.
And for anybody that does make a podcast themselves that happens to listen to this, I'm sure, there are points when you happen to record maybe several and have a bit of a backlog. And sometimes you might not want to actually release them in their recorded order. You might think, you know what, there's 3 episodes on a similar subject that we did in quick succession. I don't want to release all those together. I'm going to have this one then and that one then. So it does have a bit of a... there are valid reasons for it aside from I'm a brain. Well, that is kind of mostly the reason in this case. But yeah, you can't complain really. You get it for free. So
exactly.
Shut up, I guess.
Yeah, but please sign up to our Patreon.
Yeah.
Buy us a Ko-fi. Link in the description.
You can sign up to my Star Trek one for the Star Trek podcast. I'll be up for that. That's not even
point, actually.
That's not even a joke. We do actually have one for that, but that's slightly more professional than this one and has a bit more. I don't know, just a bit more pizzazz to it than needs paying for, doesn't it? For this malarkey, it's just Stu's out of pocket paying for a website hosting, but
yeah.
It's all right, isn't it? You don't mind paying for that. For the
$10
customers. Look what Stuart does for you. You people that listen to this.
You people.
Stuart's paying you, if anything, to get this thing to you.
Exactly.
Anyway, probably talk about the old games.
Video games, that's what we talk about, isn't it?
Instead of slagging off the audience, which is normally kind of goes against you, doesn't it, a little bit, when you're trying to build up an audience. We've been trying to build up an audience for 6 odd years now.
People know.
Yeah, they like us, hopefully, so we'll survive this. What, have you been playing anything of interest? You still into your
I'm still
Japanese RPGs?
Yes, I'm playing Tales of Arise on the Xbox Series X. It's very good. I'm enjoying it. I'm about 16, 17 hours in of a good 60 hour story. So I don't know, I just enjoy sitting down, smashing up some monsters, leveling up a bit, and then sort of moving forward, really. So that's it. Have you bought the new FIFA?
No, I think I've said my technique now is just to wait. Well, there's the Game Pass factor now, so by about
and after Christmas it'll be on Game Pass for free.
Yeah, you'll get to I think 21 came out in April/May on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I just got it for that. I'm fine with playing with last season's kits and stats, for the sake of not spending 50 quid.
I've got some questions about football games for you. It's not going to be the whole podcast, guys. Don't worry. They
get worried.
We do history of early doors.
We've done a whole Konami football
ISS
episode.
Again. Don't worry. That's not going to happen. Now, talking about ISS. Now, the new eFootball. Now, E stands for electronic. eFootball, whatever it is, it's now live. It's now you can download it and you can play it. And it's got some quite bad reviews. And it almost feels like there's about 7 teams you can play, 2 modes. This doesn't work, that doesn't work. Now, last year's Pro Evo, got really good reviews. It was, a lot of people said, actually, it's the better game over FIFA. And FIFA did well on its own as well, as it always does. So what happened with eFootball? Why are they not just sort of slightly improved last year's? Have you gone for a new?
I haven't really. The last sort of 3 I thought have all been a bit crap. I didn't really like.
Really?
2018 was I enjoyed a lot, and I played that a lot. 2019 was like they kind of again with any football game you just turning up dials on one side of the machine and turning down the dials on the other side, and then we've tweaked it and fixed it. But I used to really like running down the wings and flinging crosses in and scoring a lot of goals from headers, and then which was really enjoyable to do in 2018. But then they completely nerfed that in 2019, so you couldn't score a header for love nor money. So that kind of killed a lot of the enjoyment, and it was kind of slowed down. And like there was a thing like they do where the ball itself, like and passing, is very weak. You can like the ball rolls very slowly, and it feels like it's going through molasses, and that you could really feel it. So everything felt a bit sluggish. I didn't really fix that with 20, and 20 obviously was what 21 was. It was just 21 wasn't really a brand new game. So it kind of killed Pro Evo for me a little bit. And it's also like I've been really getting into on FIFA with career mode. I've really enjoyed doing the I always used to like turn my nose up to this mode, but in the last few years I've gone nuts on it. The sort of create my player or be a superstar. It's changed its name over the years, where you just play as like one guy. You make your own kind of character player. And you just play as that one guy, and you basically have a career as this one guy, because you can actually, you don't have to control the one person in the actual matches. You can actually control the team like normal. And I found, I set up my footballer as a striker, and I just have a lot of fun just playing as this dude. And obviously pick your team. You can choose what team you want to start off as. So, whoever it is in like League 2, you can play as. I'll play as like someone like Colchester United, which is a team I've actually got a real life kind of connection to. It's near where I grew up. So I play as them, and then just, have a bit of fun trying to get them promoted with my player as the star striker. And obviously, if you're controlling the team, you can engineer the goals for your guy to score because you're trying to pass the ball to him. Unlike when you're doing that kind of slightly rubbish original version of this mode where you had to play as the one player, so you'd have to rely on yelling at there was ways of like telling other players to pass you the ball, but the computer was like very unreliable and a bit crap. So
I've never understood the game, the FIFA, the football computer game mode where you play as one character, and the thought of playing. I think there's a some sort of multiplayer mode where like you and 3 of your friends, you're all got a slightly different color, halo above your player, and and that just seems like, I'm stuck with a defender that sort of sort of tackles someone, gets the ball and passes it forward, and then I'm not doing anything for
exactly
30 seconds,
and you're kind of just running around in empty space, trying to not be offside or something. If it's a bit tedious,
and then you're all sort of chasing the ball, and you go, I want it, and then you put yourself out of position, and
the AI kind of concedes against and you're like not really in control of how good the rest of the team plays. So you're right, that was lame when that was the only option. But now you can just play as the whole team as a normal game. Obviously there is a bit of an extra element of you're trying to kind of feed, if you're playing as a striker for example, you're trying to feed your dude on the pitch as many crosses and passes as they can to get them into position to score. And it's great because for someone like me, I'm not into Champ Man. I don't play like any sort of footy manny games either. I'm not into looking at glorified Excel spreadsheets and basically I haven't played those sort of games or enjoyed them since the Amiga days really. So for this, it's kind of the best of both worlds. I get to do a campaign that can go on for as long as you have this player career going. So, as many years as a player plays football really is how long it'll last. But I don't have to deal with buying players for the team, getting the right formation. The computer handles all of that stuff. And I just look after my dude. And obviously, you have to do things like put in a transfer request if you're bored of playing with the team you're with, and then you'll hopefully get bought by someone if you're doing well. And it's really good. Just one of those things where, like you said, it's just nice to be able to like I said, with RPGs where you just kind of chill out, you're not too stressed about it. You can just sit back and relax and pass away however long you want. That's kind of what you can do with that mode. There isn't really any admin. I could just sit and just play match after match after match. I'm still progressing towards a greater goal without having to do any kind of stuff that would I'm not spending hours in menus trying to tweak my team. I could just, you can build up your player stats by participating in the mini games, that often most people tend to play when the game's loading. But you can actually have it automatically do those for you. So you can just use the real games that you're playing into, to get the most of your leveling up sort of stuff. So yeah, that's what I tend to do now with FIFA. I don't play Ultimate Team. I had a period when the 8th gen started with FIFA 14 and 15. Where I tried it and I got a little bit addicted to it for a year or so. And then it just started to get tedious because you spend, again, way more time in the menus, trying to, grind to get packs that you open up, and you might get decent stuff in that. And you get things, and you're constantly having to replenish your stuff in that mode by getting more packs, and it just gets really tedious. I get how you can get addicted to it, but by the time, I just sort of couldn't be asked with it at that point. And I was never going to pay money for the packs.
No,
I think I always got the Ultimate Edition at that point of the game, so I got a bunch of free packs every month. I think was the thing you got for pre-ordering in those days. I don't know if they still do that. I think they still do an Ultimate Edition. But yeah, did you ever get into that mode at any point?
I tried it. I remember playing it for a little while, but I think I was, this is really good. And I think I played it for a week or so, and it was. I remember playing. FIFA 18 was the last one I really seriously played, and that was actually on the Switch, believe it or not. And and I remember I did. I can't remember what the name of the mode was, but I went all the way through the season with Charlton Athletic, who obviously a team you're very passionate about and the team that I like.
Where'd you hear that?
Well,
it's known. It is known.
It is known. Trevor, CAFC is your middle name.
It's subtle but effective.
Exactly. And I got to the end of the season, and that was it. And I thought, I'll go up to the next league, from League One to the Championship.
Yeah.
But then nothing like that happened. I think, God, I wasted all that time. I actually played the wrong mode. And it was really a bit frustrating, but I don't know if the Switch version had that mode. And for me now is when I go on holiday, I've still got FIFA 18. And I haven't updated it.
No.
So if I buy FIFA 22, it's got the updated players, but it still plays exactly the same. I always like I like the way it played on the Switch. It was fine.
Yeah.
And so it's something that not that I'm on any flights at the moment, but if I go away, I'm at a train station, something like that, it's good just to sort of have a game of that and then not have to worry.
Yeah, I'm in a weird sort of phase with the Switch at the moment because obviously we did an episode on the Steam Deck, and I think I said on that I've already pre-ordered it. I think you're sort of interested to get one as well at some point.
I'll pre-order it also.
You pre-ordered it as well, didn't you? We both pre-ordered it. So at the moment, something like FIFA, at the moment, if I was going to get it, I would probably get the PC version because for a handheld, if I wanted a handheld version, I'd get the PC version because then I could just run that on the Steam Deck, and I've got the full fat. Well, at the moment, the PC version isn't the next gen version. The next gen version, when it does eventually come to the PC, it's one annoying thing about the PC version of FIFA. When there's a new gen of consoles that come out, often they won't make the PC version to match that, and for a couple of years, and they often sort of say, "Oh, we're worried that people don't have good enough graphics processors yet, so we don't want to annoy them by giving the game super high."
It's funny with the PC. Some people always talk about sort of the PC master race, the PC this, the PC that, and totally agree. You can get some amazing performances out of the PC, but then some games are so focused on 200, 300, 400 frames a second, 4K, everything. You can whack it all up to max. It's all brilliantly optimized. But then it's other games are they're designed to be played on the PS4. Then second thought is better work on the PS5, and then we'll have to make it good on the Xbox as well. And then, oh, what should we do about the PC version? Okay, well, let's just, release it. And they don't really get, and I think that what my issue is, I want to get a PC, but actually, I'd rather play the games on consoles.
Yeah.
I feel that most of them are almost more optimized for a console, and a lot of games that I want to play. When people talk about, I see all these reviews of latest graphics cards, and then how fast it plays CS:GO, how fast does it play Tomb Raider, how fast does it play Fortnite, what frames per second. I'm thinking, actually, I don't want to play those games. I want to. I sort of something about console games that I like playing, but
yeah, I mean, as everybody knows, I prefer to play on PC. If you held a gun to my head and said, you can only play stuff on one system, what would it be? It would be the PC. And to some extent, the Steam Deck has reinforced that now, because I've got a handheld version of any PC game that I ever want. Obviously, it remains to be seen how good it will be at new games, brand new games. But it looks pretty good so far, like Jedi Fallen Order and all that stuff. But with FIFA, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's not a normally. They want to make sure that the PC version can run on like absolute potato sort of like laptops that kids might have, so they can run it on that. So, and it's got a bit of a weird history on the PC, because it's been on the PC since I think the very first FIFA came out on the PC in '90. I think just after the Mega Drive version, about a year maybe after, in '94. So it's been on the PC since practically, well, I can't say day one, because that'd be the Mega Drive original, but not far past day one. But I remember with the 7th gen consoles, the 360 and the PS3, the PC version of FIFA at that point didn't get the same kind of version as the 360 and PS3 until like FIFA 12. It was really, really late. But then when we got to the 8th gen, I think it was FIFA 15 was the first version that had parity with the top tier consoles. So that was quite soon. And it'll probably be the same this time. I mean, it might even be 22. Will actually just be the next gen version of PC.
What's the numbers? Because I don't really watch esports. Listeners of this will know I never talk about esports. But I think I did watch on the BBC, had some sort of FIFA tournaments going on, and they had it was all about the Xbox players played each other, then they had to play the PlayStation players, and then they sort of swapped consoles or something like that. And it almost feels like a game it's sort of an odd type of game. It's a competitive online game, but I'll make up a number here. 99% of people play it on Xbox, play it on PlayStation, and maybe a few people play it on the PC. And I think the fact that they don't release the sort of the latest and greatest version with the I don't know, Frostbite Engine 2.0 or whatever it is, it almost spells that, well, actually, it's not really the type of game that will play well and on a PC. It physically play well, but it doesn't, demand that level of commercial sort of sales that potentially the PlayStation or the Xbox One would have. And maybe they focus their PC division on, let's make Battlefield 5 or whatever the latest one is amazing.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know I've never seen sales figures for the PC version of FIFA. It's never really talked about, is it really? It obviously sells well enough for people, for them to make it each year, and it's like I said, it goes all the way back to the very first FIFA on the PC. And literally DOS, you'd run the original on like DOS, and 96 and 97 probably as well on DOS.
Well, that's it. PlayStations and which is our PCs now.
I think there was one point in the late 90s when they're literally run the same architecture, don't they? But I think there was even one point, I think at the late 90s, when it was just on like the PC and PS2 or PS1, and then the Xbox sort of came in just after that. So it's kind of survived through all the last sort of 25, nearly 30 years sort of pushing now, isn't it? Which is kind of crazy to think. But Yeah, I just wait for it to like it's great now that EA Play or whatever you call that now. I think it is EA Play, isn't it? Is included with Game Pass. So I just wait for the old version to. It's not even the old version when it kind of goes on sale. It's still the current version. When it gets to April, May time, it'll end up on that. I'll start playing the new one at that point. I mean, again, I'm still on an Xbox One X. I'm not playing. I haven't got a PS5. I haven't got a Series X or a Series console. I'm probably not going to get one anytime soon. The shortages are still ridiculous. Probably is going to get better anytime soon. Hopefully, sometime in the coming year, it might. But there's no predictions really, is there, on when that will be? To be honest, I think it's very likely that I won't buy one of them until the slim versions come out, which I'm sure they're already working on. And to be honest, like I think I mentioned it in a podcast recently, they're just too damn big. I've got a very, small unit that I put these consoles in, and they're just too big for it. My fat PS3 barely fits inside, just about leaves enough room for ventilation. I definitely won't fit a PS5 in there. Wouldn't fit a Series X.
I mean, I've thought about this, and I've got an Xbox Series X, and that fits in my cabinet. It's got an open front, so lots of ventilation. So there's no problem there. I put it on its side. But I think if I do get a PS5, that's actually going to be stood up behind the TV.
Yeah, that's the only room it can really go.
It's going to be in like the oddest place.
Yeah,
and because I can't get it in in the display cabinet or TV cabinet. It just won't fit. And then we've always got our Virgin box, our Xbox Series X in there already. Yeah. So I'll have to take the Xbox out and then put that somewhere. But yeah, no, it is a very big machine.
Yeah, I mean it's a big consideration for me. But normally with the slim consoles, there's a dramatic decrease in size. I mean, if they can get it to it just needs to be the size of a fat PS3, which is a big old chunk of a console in itself. I think it'll be smaller than that. It'll probably be more like with the PS5.
I reckon it'll be the size of a PS2 Slim.
God, that'd be amazing.
I reckon it'll come out in about 6 months, and it'll be the size of a PS2 Slim.
PS1, the original, as in the one that you could attach the little screen to.
Yeah, it'll be the size of that.
I don't think they'll ever get anything down to those sizes ever again, will they?
I don't think so.
You just
Yeah, I mean, it goes back down to when you remember those consoles, you open them up and they had no cooling at all.
No, that's right.
Absolutely no cooling.
They'd squish everything down by the end of the life cycle to one chip as well, a lot of the time, like RAM, graphics card, CPU, all in one.
Well, it was actually amazing. And now, to run a computer, you need fans, copper pipes, tanks of water. And great big cooling units, and that's what you need. That's what.
Yeah, I don't think you'll get something as small as the PS2 Slim. I mean, I think the last sort of generation. We got a nice big drop when like the Xbox One have probably had the biggest drop in size. I think you went from that to like a One X, especially when you think about the original VCR type Xbox One, the original 2013 one. That is obviously quite a big console, and to go from that to the One X was a huge drop in size, especially when you consider the power increase that came with it. But the PS4, you got the PS4 Slim, which wasn't massively smaller.
No,
and then there's sort of the generation before that, you had the Xbox 360S, which was a little bit not as high. About as fat, but not as tall. So it wasn't dramatically smaller. The PS3 probably actually was smaller. The Super Slim is like very light and kind of cheap feeling because it's so small. Yeah. But even that is still bigger than, not that much. It's about the same size as a fat PS2. So yeah, the era of that. I mean, some consoles of the original Xbox never got a Slim, did it? It was just that huge thing the whole time, and the GameCube. The GameCube was tiny.
Coloured versions, but a sort of redesign. And I suppose the redesign was the Xbox 360. To be honest,
it was.
And that was like, okay, right, we've got to redesign everything, and
it wasn't massive in the first place, though, was it? Really, it was quite a cool looking system from day one. I think the original sort of big Xbox 360 or original, whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
I thought that was a very nice machine. Obviously there were problems with it, with the the red light of death and all of that.
Yeah.
So, from my point of view, is it was maybe a little bit rushed out. I'm not saying it should have been bigger; it should have been better designed. I think, but
yeah. I mean the S looked quite cool, didn't it? I've got I use the 360E.
That's what I've got.
Yeah, the third version. I got the special edition like blue and light blue one, which is kind of cool. I managed to get it really cheap when they were just like fire sailing them because no one was buying them at that point in time because the Xbox One had already been out, so it was like 130 quid. So I was like, oh Christ, I'll get that. So that's my main one, and it's worked since 2013. I think I got it, and it works fine. I've actually used up the hard drive completely. I had 500 gig inside it, and I've had to attach an external like 1 terabyte just because of games with gold. You got those free games you still do to this day. You get those free games, and you get 4 a month. And the games that they put on Games of Gold, the 360 ones also work on an Xbox One. But the trouble is I don't want to use up the hard drive space with the 360 games, so I play them on the actual 360 where I've got the extra space to do it. That's interesting. I mean, we can actually make a segue in terms of talking about consoles, and actually, a space-saving device is kind of one reason to own one of these, but it's not something I've got a lot of experience with. But Stu, you want to talk about?
I do, yeah.
Something in particular.
Subjects. I went to, obviously everyone knows I used to run a video game shop. So I went to a friend of mine who used to come into the shop all the time, buy lots of games, and we're good friends. So I went to, he invited me over, and went to his house. We had a bit of pizza, and he's a collector of sort of retro computers, much like yourself, Trev, and me to a certain extent. And he was, Stuart, I really want to show you. Well, I'm talking about 2 things, but the first thing is a Mister console. So everyone's heard of that. It's an FPGA machine. So the whole idea is it tackles the world of emulation in a different way, and so you get a core that sort of makes the chip behave like the original hardware, basically. So the whole idea is it'll behave like the original hardware. So then you put your games sort of into it, your ROMs. So and then the whole idea is that they'll play so much better than actually going for an emulator which is actually doing the I guess the emulation, and that can lead to lag and issues. And for 99% of people, emulation is fine, but this is actually almost making a perfect copy of the hardware of the machine. So when you put the ROMs in, they'll behave absolutely perfectly. So I mean, Trevor, have you heard about the Mister? Is it something that you want to get? Bear in mind that the kit that my friend got was about sort of £430, and apparently you have to buy a board from IBM, or they're the ones that make, or Intel, I think.
It's kind of a DIY sort of situation, isn't it?
Yeah, you put memory into it, and then you put another board on top, and it looks like this little like tower thing.
Yeah.
Probably, maybe sort of 40-50 mil in height, and
it looks like an OSCC, doesn't it?
OSCC, sorry, exactly. And I was sort of part of me was like, oh, okay, that looks really good, and we played loads of games on there, and actually, this is quite funny. I'm going to segue into another story about my trip here. He said, "Oh, Stuart, I've got to show you my new TV," and I was like, "Oh yeah, brilliant. Okay, what have you got? A 60-inch 4K TV?" No. Well, why would I buy one of them? So he's bought this 50-inch massive, weighs 70 kg plasma Pioneer screen.
Oh my balls!
And it's like, and
like a mid 2000s sort of thing, or an early 2000s.
14 years old. He was telling me, and he bought it from this guy for 200 quid. And the guy, he went to his house, picked it up, put it in the car, took it home, and the guy originally bought it for 13 grand. This
Holy
TV,
balls.
and it's
Is
like,
it even HD? Is it actually HD?
it
Might
is,
not
yeah,
be. It is.
It's 1080p.
Oh, cool.
Plasma screen, and I have to admit the picture was absolutely phenomenal. It looked so good. Everything was so clear, and you know, I'm not going to go and buy one. I haven't got the space, but it was just like, wow, what a really sort of good TV to have. And then you put, obviously it's still got HDMI ports, so you can put your PlayStation 5, your PS4 into it. You get 1080p, but you just get a really sort of nice, clear picture. You know, the blacks are black, and yeah, it was going through that, and it looked very good.
I've always been curious about the old sort of late 90s and very early 2000s, like rear projection TVs that are like obviously big old chunks of a TV, and they're ginormous, completely impractical unless you've got like a big huge basement gaming den thing or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think everybody says they're generally quite crap, and the images is very dull and dark.
Yeah.
And
I've talked about it in the past. I remember when I was maybe sort of 16. Obviously, I'm a lot older now. Or maybe I was 18.
You?
Yeah. And I went to a friend's house, and it's one of those things where I think I worked at a pub at the time, and some guy came in. He's a bit cool or whatever, and about 4 or 5 of us all went round to his house to play Mario Kart. And
he had a rear projection.
I don't know. And he had this massive rear projection TV. I was like, brilliant. This TV's 70 odd inches. And it was just, the picture was, I can remember it now. It was god awful. And it was just everything, you know, it was, it looked washed out times 10. It was, you know, we had fun. But if you're looking for a quality picture, you know, the plasma screen that my friend had that came out, you know, maybe 5, 6, 7 years later, was it looked like almost like the perfect combination between, you know, HD, LCD TV, you know, a really clear picture of HDMI, and it will also play all of the older stuff as well really well.
Yeah, it's you're sort of getting into a sort of the weird and wonderful world of, like, you know, old school like home cinema MacGuffins. Like another one I've been curious about is Muse high vision laser discs that only came out in Japan, that are actually they're high definition, literally it's in the name, high definition laser discs that came out in like the mid 90s. And they supposedly had like 1035 lines of resolution, which is obviously quite close to you know, 1080i. Because in Japan they were experimenting with HD video and broadcasting HD, and in like the early mid 90s, and they used the same technology to make laserdiscs that could play that sort of it's called high vision content. There's a really good video that Techmoan did about it. He bought a high vision laserdisc player with some discs, cost him maybe £10,000, probably at least a few £1,000s. In those days, it would have been like 10, 20 grand for one of these players. And now, obviously, you compare them to a Blu-ray, and they'll look kind of crap. But
well, what was also really good about this setup was the screen, and obviously I mentioned the TV. Apparently, it weighs 70 kg, so you know it's a 2-man lift. And you know, my TV now, 4K TV, I've talked about before, you know, lift it up, move it around, no problem. You know, it's like picking up you know, nothing really. It's not very heavy.
Kind of like a painting or something, or something framed. Yeah,
exactly. But the benefit of of this TV is you put on, oh no, you got to watch this, and you put on the intro to some film, and I've actually not realised, you know, how shit, mind my language, that, you know, the current TVs, the speakers are.
Yeah.
Was in the past, you get a TV and have great big speakers on the side, and it'll, you know, and if you haven't opened it up, it'd be big, deep speakers. but now they're almost like tiny little tinny things, and you don't
Yeah,
realise actually on this TV it's got massive sort of speakers on either side that are probably, well, no one can see me, but it's probably about sort of a good sort of 20 centimeters wide on either side that, you know, pump out a decent amount of sound, and just makes for I thought it was a really good experience. And
I'm
for
into
£200, go and buy one.
Yeah. I'm into my films and, like, you know, having a good setup to be able to watch things on. But I never have got. I remember, like, in the early 2000s when DVDs became really commonplace and it was all about 5.1 surround sound. But
Yeah.
I never had. You know, in those days, I was, you know, for a chunk of that, I was living with my parents, and you know, you're kind of at the mercy of whatever they wanted to have as their TV, you know, setup. And then later on, I never lived in a place that had that perfect square room where you could mount the telly on the wall and you could perfectly separate the sort of the 5 speakers around you and then have the one in the middle. I never had that sort of setup, so I've only ever had the speakers that were built into a TV. And for the most part, I've never sat there thinking, "Oh my god, this sounds crap. I have to get new." I'm sure if I like as you just said, if I, you know, actually tested some really good speakers, I'll probably be like, "Oh my god, I need to get one." I've thought about getting a sound bar because that's a nice little sort of low key upgrade that you can do.
Tech did a video maybe a couple of weeks ago, and
he did.
He upgraded his system to this Sony. I think the whole setup was maybe £1,500, if not more, for a soundbar, subwoofer, and these wireless speakers. And I was sort of sitting there going, "Oh, I really want this." And, you know, the way he was sort of describing the sounds and things like that. But then I realised that a lot of the things I watch on TV, you know, I don't sit at home and watch Hollywood movies, and
not like all day, like every day.
That's not what I watch.
I watch Tech Moan.
Well, exactly. I play a lot of video games on there. You know, I watch, I don't know, a lot of murder mysteries. I'm showing my age now, and a lot of YouTube, and then I watch sports, and I'm sure I'll get a better experience with these, and I would love to have them, but I can't quite justify the price.
And even in these days with consoles, especially, you know, and it has been for a little while now. Like the controllers have a headphone jack now, which relays the game audio, so you can just, you know, you don't have to worry about the TV speakers. Like I was playing Last of Us Part 2, but I was playing it with headphones plugged into the DualShock 4, and it sounded brilliant. It's just as good as, I'm sure, probably 5.1 or whatever we're at 7.1, 8.1 audio would probably be the most immersive way you could do it. Dolby Atmos, but I don't have like a gaming den where I can have 9 speakers set up and I just put myself in there all night, turn the thing off.
I'm conscious about my neighbours. You know,
we live in flats.
I think we all dream about, one day we'll live in a detached house, and then I can have a movie room, and I can have a massive, great big screen, and that's the way, you know, I want things. But, you know, at the moment, well, we live in a block of flats. And
we both live in flats. We live in London, where, you know, it's really hard to get a house with a. The closest I got was when I moved out of my house. I just said, like, no one wants to move in a house. I did live in a house for a little bit in Stratford in East London. East London. I was lucky to get a house that cheap. It's overrated in some ways, you know, especially in London when you get, you know, a lot of spam callers. Even if you put a sign at the front saying "Don't knock on our thing for a, you know, to sell us anything." Just loads of. We got burgled as well. So parking the car's a nightmare unless you've got a garage. Which we didn't. We had street parking, so you had to find a parking space every time, and people would scratch your car and dent it trying to park behind you. It was overrated. Now we're in a flat, you know, we don't have to worry about getting burgled unless Spider-Man does it. And we've got, you know, it comes with its own secure underground parking. So I'm quite happy being in a flat. But yeah, what I'm trying to say, it's difficult to get a really nice setup. We nearly had something when we were moving from Stratford before we landed where we are now in southeast London. We nearly found a place in East London that was kind of a bit like a flat. It was part of a complex that had 2 kind of houses kind of mashed together, but they were separate. almost like a maisonette, but with an upstairs and downstairs. And it had a basement that was like a really nicely carpeted with like completely blank walls and one really big like wall that you could like put a sofa on the other side. And we were thinking we were going to go for this place, and we were thinking, God, that'd be brilliant for I've always wanted to have like a home cinema, get maybe a projector, point that at the but it was a separate room, so we could have our living room. It had a living room which you just watch, you'd bum around in the evenings. We just want to do your regular evening thing, but then we could literally say, on certain evenings or whenever we want, say, hey, let's put on a movie, let's watch it in our little setup in the basement, and that would have been really cool. But that was really unusual to find a place that had that. It probably would have been normally you'd have like a couple, two separate people, not a couple. Someone would have that as their bedroom, the basement, and someone would live in the bedroom that was in the upper floor. But yeah, you're not going to find. I mean, all these YouTubers we always talk about have these ridiculous setups. They're in like the 1% of probably people that are into that stuff. They're the absolute top of the food chain.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
That's what I said. My mantle in life is like, you can have whatever you want. You can have whatever you want, but you can't have everything that you want.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you want to go to Barbados twice a year, yeah, you can do it. But then you can't, have a huge video game collection, or you can't live right in the middle of London, or you can't do other things. But you can do whatever you want. And I think, we're always sort of so influenced by, I want to say, American, a lot of these YouTube, it's nothing for them, and they might say, oh, well, it's difficult for us to buy houses in America, but it does seem like certainly certain parts of America it's very affordable to sort of buy a house, and
the 8-bit guy,
a den or
a
basement where you have a pool table and have a setup, and that's where your kids go down and sort of play, and then you have your family room upstairs and 4 bedrooms, and that does seem a little bit more attainable.
Yeah, I mean, look at the 8-bit guy. I mean, he's built an entire separate component to his house where he records his stuff. I mean, obviously, he's got some advantages that we wouldn't have, and we're not begrudging that. It's just it's a fact. He was able to design that entire extra bit himself, and help build it. I don't have any of those skills. I'd have to pay someone to do all that and consult, on it, and I'd add thousands of pounds that he wouldn't have had to have paid. And we're not a big YouTube channel that can potentially, get a huge amount of money from Patreon. We work in regular jobs, quote unquote regular jobs. We do this in our spare time, and we don't get paid for it, which is fine. That's just, that's how it is. It's not, we're not going to get annoyed about it. That's with the amount of effort that we put in, that's what we get, so that's how it is. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping one day, probably, a few promotions and pay rises down the line, I might be able to afford a bigger place and, and have a room where I can plonk all this stuff. But like I said, even then, I wouldn't have a room that I would full-time game in, because I don't want to be, I'm in a relationship, with my girlfriend. I don't want to disappear into a room as soon as I finish work and be in there for 4 hours playing PlayStation or Xbox,
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the idea of having I like to have an office where I can work from home in. I wouldn't want to have almost like a gaming room where I'd go to, because then, I don't know, it's human nature to be around other people, to communicate with other people. And I certainly wouldn't like that. But my friend, the other thing which he had, which I know you're very knowledgeable about, I'm building you up here. So you obviously
not that knowledgeable about anything.
Is talking about great TVs and all great screens. He's got the NeXTcube, and if you look on our Twitter, there's a picture of me sitting next to this and having a quick go on it.
Where did he get this?
Well, it was so funny, not funny, but he had a search on eBay, like a saved search for sort of like 5 years.
Yeah.
And then, one will come up, I'd be in America, or one will come up, a year later, and it'll be broken with, for parts or something, not working. Oh, I don't want that one. then one came anyway. So eventually, to cut a long story short, he found one that was in, I'd say it's medium condition. It was obviously used because the next console, or not consoles, computers, they tend to be used not at home. They were used in design offices, desktop publishing.
Yeah, that's right. Universities and
universities, and this was like a metal case, and it was all sort of painted black. So there was lots of chips and bits and pieces on there, and it does work, but some of the capacitors have slightly expanded. So he's trying to get someone to sort that out. So if anyone knows anyone, please reach out to us, and I can put you in contact. And it had the hard drive that was the size of a literal, I don't know, like a book, like War and Peace or something.
Yeah.
And the hard copy of War and Peace.
Yeah.
And so he's taken that out, and then he's put in a SCSI to SSD, not SSD, but
to IDE or like
CF cards or something.
Yes,
that's gone in there, and it runs a 68030 processor, and I believe, I want to say 1989,
88, I think
88, yeah. and to use it, the screen is, oh god, I'm going to say a random number here.
Megapixel. It's a megapixel display. Yeah,
it's a it's almost like a resolution, not quite that you would have now. So it's not quite 1080p. It's like 1024.
Yeah. I think it's actually slightly higher than that, but yeah, it's really high for that year for 88. Absolutely.
The screen, and there's such clarity. It's only black and white, and I believe you can get a color card to get color out of it. But it was such an amazing machine, and you can see that what it's doing is the same. It's the same. It's like the great grandfather of the OS that people are using now on
NeXTstep
MacBook. And that's what I love to see, is just oh wow, so you can see this. I know what I'm doing with it. It's all very obvious what I need to do, and then that's evolved to become this, to evolve to become this, to evolve to become this. And apparently, on your iPhone, or anyone's got an iPhone, it's still got code that was used as part of that next system is on an iPhone for it to work.
Yeah, basically, for any people who don't know at all about it, Steve Jobs, who co-founded Apple, he got sacked by Apple in 1985.
He didn't do very well in his performance review. You got 4 ones, and he said must improve.
Yeah, and I guess that demotivated him.
So he left.
He wound up getting sacked, which is a bit of a weird scenario if he founded the company. But he got sacked, and he went off, and I think he had a few months off. But then after that, he founded another computer company called NeXT. NeXT literally meaning I'm going to make the next awesome computer. He sort of poached quite a few people from Apple to do it. I think he ended up getting taken to court by Apple because of that. But eventually that settled down, and he set about designing a new computer that would kill the Macintosh and everything else. And that became the NeXTstation. I think he unveiled it in 1988, but it had it was super advanced. I mean, like you've already said, it had a megapixel display, so a really, really high resolution black and white display for the time. It had a really, really good digital audio, so it could play back really great sounding, orchestral sounding music, the likes of which we wouldn't really get in the mainstream until sort of really high end Sound Blaster sound cards came into being in 92, 93, 94 time. So that was ahead of the curve. It used magneto optical discs to store its data.
I held one of them.
Yeah, so they didn't use floppy disks, they didn't use CDs, but it used, they looked like CDs in little caddies.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
You could read and write to them. So that was a great thing. Obviously, it was in this really cool kind of pizza box, very small. Well, there was one that was a big, huge cube, which was the one.
Yeah,
the
the
NeXT
cube
Cube.
is the one that
Yeah.
that my friend had,
Yeah.
and he mentioned there's also the pizza box one, and I think RMC the Cave.
Yes.
He did a video on that a couple of years ago, and I
Retro
think
Man
actually,
Cave, the cave.
you don't say man, can't say man,
Retro
and then the
Person Cave, the cave.
Retro Person Cave,
Yeah.
RMC the Cave, and then my friend has got the cube one, which is
Yes.
apparently, but I think there is another like Next Plus.
They kept they kept iterating them through the year to well into the 90s. But yeah, so yeah, and it had great sound, great display, you know, neat optical storage. But the one big thing about it was the operating system, NeXTstep, which was had lots of fundamental like graphical user interface things that we take for granted now. I mean, Mac OS is a direct like descendant of it, because what brought Steve Jobs back to Apple was Apple were kind of looking to completely rebuild their OS from scratch and start over, because the classic Mac OS was kind of, you know, getting a very buggy, and they were heaping on new features into it that it shouldn't really be able to support, and hacking it to get new features done, and it was making it more and more unstable. By the time we got to Mac OS 8 and Mac OS 9 in the mid-90s, but they just were incapable of developing a new OS in-house because of the, you know, the political reasons and just engineering reasons. They just couldn't crack it. So they just thought, well, we'll just buy one that's out there. And that ended up being Next. Weren't really doing anything at this point in time in the late sort of 1996, 97. They weren't making computers anymore. They were only really just their OS was really what they were selling. They made it run on other computers, not just the Next stations, NeXTstep. And they looked at NeXTstep. Apple did. Gil Amelio was the name of the CEO, who was in charge of Apple in those days, kind of the dark ages of Apple. These are. And then he went bust in 1997. They're about 2 months away from going bust.
Didn't Bill Gates sort of save them or something?
Yeah, after Jobs came back, he helped out. But they brought Jobs back because they bought his OS, NeXTstep, and they bought Next, the company, and absorbed them into Apple. And that obviously brought Jobs back. And then Jobs found a way to get rid of Gil Amelio as the CEO. And I don't think he wanted to be the CEO initially. He was trying to find someone. He couldn't really find anybody, so he kind of did the job for a few months. And then ultimately he became the CEO. But it was the interim CEO for a while, for about 2 or 3 years, before he just took the job on a full-time basis. Thing is, he was already working at Pixar. He was their CEO. So he was like, I'm not sure I want to be the CEO of two companies. But he managed to make it work, obviously, massively well. But yeah, they took NeXTstep and they kind of re-engineered it to become Mac OS 10. And a lot of the same. If you put the last version of NeXTstep and Mac OS 10 next to each other, they look very, very similar. They've got the dock at the bottom of the screen when you can keep your applications to get to them quickly. System-wide dictionary, that was an unusual thing that NeXTstep had. Even little things like having the breadcrumb trails when you're, you know, going through your folders in like the Finder and the NeXTstep interface manager, and also things like, you know, just having really good sound and graphics generally, and really good like.
I mean, if you go back to, let's say, 89, 88, 89,
yeah,
I mean, and you see the NeXTstep operating system, and you compare that to now. I'm obviously an Amiga fanboy. I'm going, well, Workbench, that's a, you know, a GUI and blah blah blah, and it was a really brilliant operating system. But obviously, the big player at the time was the PC, and I imagine 99% of people were still on DOS. And and I don't know the answer to this, but were people using, I don't know, Windows 2.0 or Windows 3.1? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, they were. I mean, the early versions of. Yeah, the early versions of Windows were about. I mean, you were literally looking at Windows 1 came out in 1985 and wasn't very good. And then I think 87 Windows 2 came out, which is a bit better, but again, not great.
Yeah.
There wasn't really no one was they didn't sell so well that people started making software for them. So there's also the fact that, to run your software on something like Windows 2 in those days, you're taking there's already a lot of overhead going on with the computer running the Windows 2, and then you've got to try and have it run your word processor or your graphics package on top of that. There was very little computing overhead to support that in PCs, so you were better off just making it run in DOS. Everybody had DOS that had a PC. It wasn't until Windows 3.0 in 1990 that people really started taking up. And there's also the fact that that was when Windows was, got good at copying the Mac OS. That was the first version that was really a good copy of Mac OS, because Mac OS was like light years ahead, and arguably still is. But yes, I mean, even like when you got to about 1987, when the Macintosh 2 came out, they kind of weird. They made a computer called the Macintosh 2. It was literally considered to be like almost a reboot of the Macintosh. It was the first Mac that came in just a beige sort of big desktop kind of case like you'd find any PC. They were still selling the cute little, the original classic kind of Mac, all-in-one Mac alongside it. That became the cheaper option, and that became the Mac Classic. It's funny calling something a classic when even in 1987 it was only like 3 years old, which is like computing took things. Time was longer in those days. It was kind of weird, Things happened so
the opposite.
quickly.
Time was faster. Than it seemed like
it could be
every moment a new computer was coming out, which
it was very exciting.
Much memory or
well, they released the Mac 2 basically because when Steve Jobs left, he didn't want you to be able to upgrade the Mac or open it or put more RAM in it or do anything that most people would want to do. When he buggered off or got sacked, the Mac division was like, "Oh, great! Now we can do actual stuff." So they were like, "Let's make a ginormous Mac in a big box that you can stick graphics cards in and hard drives." And basically, it became the modern Mac at that point. Although now it's gone back to the way it used to be, where you can't upgrade them. So it's kind of regressed a little bit. But there was a good golden era of about 15, 20 years where you could go nuts on them.
I watched an interview with Steve Wozniak. I hope I've said his name correctly.
Yeah.
And then, you probably know about this story and probably explain it better than I can, but it was sort of very interesting how he had a completely different ethos to Steve Jobs. And Steve Wozniak, he would be like, I want people to, get the machine, take the lid off, and have a good tweak of it, and upgrade it, and then if they need to, they can run a wire from here to there, and then do this and connect it to that, and it's like, oh well, that sounds great. But then what Steve Jobs was, and we all speak very highly of him, and rightly so. But then he was very no, I'm going to create a box. It's sleek. It's all in one. It's this is what it is, and I'm I like the iPhone, and I've got an iPhone, and it's a great product, and part of me thinks, I wish I could update my iPhone with a new processor, but you can't, and you appreciate you can't do that, and there's benefits to that, but there's also negatives. You can't upgrade the processor.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're kind of in that era again, as you say. But there was that point where basically Jobs left, and then the CEO of Apple at the time, a chap called John Scully, he put another chap called Jean-Louis Gasset in charge of the Mac division. He took over Steve Jobs' old job. I'm saying job and jobs a lot. And he took that over, and he was like, "Yep, great. Now we can make an upgradable Mac." They made the Mac 2, and it was a great machine. You can actually, if you go on YouTube and look up like Macintosh 2 presentation, there's a big keynote they did in 1987. Yeah, they did. They were doing keynotes in the 80s. They just weren't, streamed over the internet because there wasn't the ability to do that. But they did them really for internal, and for the media only. Really, in those days, the public couldn't really see this stuff. But they did a big presentation on it, and it was the first Mac to have color graphics. And it had an amazing thing where this is like 1987. He actually you could get a graphics card. They made a graphics card for the Mac 2, which would give you 16.7 million colors. which is an insane amount of colors in 1987. And I think this graphics card costs more than the computer. It's like $2 or $3 grand just for this graphics card. I think by default it could display 256, which is still really good, you know, for a 1987. But it had a really good audio as well. It had a great sound chip in there, which was very similar to what you would hear later on in PC sort of sound cards. And it was upgraded. We could take the lid off really easy, stick more RAM, hard drives, everything. And they updated Mac OS. I think the version that was knocking about at this point was version 6. They added color to that for the first time to support the Mac 2. So everybody thinks of the original Q, you know, all-in-one 1984 Mac as, you know, it obviously was really important milestone, the most important milestone. But everybody forgets about the Mac 2. It's super, super important. It basically took us into a phase of the Mac that didn't really end probably until we got to, well, I guess probably the iMac. But you could upgrade the original sort of CRT big, you know, bulbous iMac G3.
Memory change a hard drive, can't you? Surely.
Yeah, you could. There was a little. They did make a little panel at the back, I think, where maybe you have to turn it upside down. You could pop that open. You could put more RAM in it, and I think they weren't too difficult to get into. It was normal screws that you could just, you know, unscrew yourself. You could take off the top, and you can get to the hard drive as well. But yeah, after that, when you got into like the flat panel. You know what? Even the Sunflower iMac G4 that came out in 2001. Even that, the base, the big bulbous base unit that the screen came out of, that you could open up as well. You could stick, you know, a hard drive and more RAM into. So yeah, it's really. I mean, now, I mean, God, when you got to like certainly the iMac G5 when it was just the basically how they look now is when they started looking like they do now. The iMac G5, that was really when they started to really lock down on stuff. It was basically the RAM and that was it. And to open it, you've got no chance. You've got to like literally do surgery. I was watching This Does Not or That Does Not Compute yesterday.
Oh, yeah. I love that guy.
Yeah. He did a video about upgrading the SSD in like a 2013 iMac. And you literally have to, the screen is glued to the assembly and you've got to get a special kit to cut into the adhesive, and then you have to use suction cups. It looks a little ridiculous to pull the screen out. It's just utter, you know, horrifying.
I mean, it's now the PC world as you know. You've got PCs where you basically build it however you want, upgrade it however you want. You know, make it a real expression of yourself, and then. You've got the the Apple, the MacBook and the MacBook Pro and the iMac Pro and whatever they're called, and they're all. This is what they are. Nothing else. You can't change it. It is what it is, and there are benefits to that. Don't get me wrong, but if time goes on and you can't just. What's good about PC? You can have more memory to it, or upgrade the graphics card, or put another hard drive into it, and that's what sort of people like. And it's unfortunate that and I appreciate with laptops, but with desktop computers, you should be able to sort of provide some sort of physical updates, and but.
Yeah.
I think for Apple, that's just a thing of the past.
Yeah, we had the episode about vintage Mac gaming, and I talked about out of the laptops, a good one to get is the titanium PowerBook G4, which is a really it was such an amazing laptop when it came out because it was the first one to have a wide screen, and it was 1 inch thick. Which is obviously, massive now, but in those days it was like literally half the size of the average. And it had a DVD drive, which was quite a new thing in those days. One that could burn DVDs as well, which is insane. And it was just all around wireless networking as well, which is really cool, built in like Wi-Fi, as we call it now. But even that, you could pop the keyboard off the top. Quite easily, and you could pop more RAM in, and you could also just unscrew the bottom panel of the case, and that will completely allow you access There is a tiny bit of surgery, but if you wanted to switch out the hard drive, you can do that fairly straightforward. And there's guides on iFixit to show you how to do that. So, it wasn't really till we got to the MacBook Air, and the MacBook Air has become has taken over all the other laptops now. They are all basically cousins of that MacBook Air, that little super thin wedge of a laptop where it's just completely closed up. You can't get to it at all. It's now taken over. I mean, they're great machines, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they're like crap or anything, but yeah.
I mean, you see a lot of people with the iMac sort of saying the opposite now, arguing with myself. But what I like about the iMacs and all the MacBook Pros and the MacBook Airs, a lot of people use them for 5-6 years, and they're still supported. They're still good. And on a 6-7-year-old Mac, you probably speak better than I can on this. But you might not still be able to do pro video editing, but they still seem very, very capable machines, where potentially a laptop from 5 or 6 years ago might be, I don't know, a little bit not the best in the world, and to put it bluntly. It's
funny you should say that, because to edit this podcast, I actually use I'm recording this through our streaming platform that we use on a MacBook Air. But what I edit the show on is I've got a hand-me-down MacBook Pro from 2013.
Wow.
Yeah, because it has I can run a very specific version of GarageBand on it, which is great for editing podcasts. They no longer support GarageBand. The modern versions doesn't have any podcast tools. I can that's nicely set up to be able to edit on, and it works great, but that's not, podcast editing isn't a massively, resource intensive process.
No.
You wouldn't want to edit 4K, you wouldn't be able to edit 4K video on it. You better, edit, 1080p video without too much trouble, but it wouldn't do, and if you're doing it daily, you certainly wouldn't want to do something as old as that. But yeah, that's just how technology is advanced. I can't really see it changing unless they come up with a way to make it easy to get into. Well, they could come up with a way to make these devices easy to get into if they wanted you to mess with them, but they just don't. And I can see their point of view. They don't want someone messing something up and then wanting you to repair it when it wasn't your fault that it didn't work, So I can understand. They want to be able to only have a finite set of things that could go wrong based on the manufacturer, really. And to do that, you need to sort of button it down completely and stop people from doing anything that they want to do. And I don't really see it like a general. It's not really the general public that are complaining that they can't repair their Macs. I mean, it's just like a subset of people, which is totally valid. I'm not saying it's not valid, but yeah.
I mean, for me, as I mentioned before, I've had an iPhone for years. And I like the fact that you can't update it, and I like the fact that it lasts a lot longer than an Android phone that can't use the latest software. And I think you need to update that. That's the impression I get. That you have to update that more. People might disagree with that, but I like the fact that my phone's 3 or 4 years old now. It still works absolutely fine. Could do with a new battery, to be fair. But that's the sort of the reality of it, and and I like Apple with the new M1 processor, and they've got it's almost like the motherboard. It's a little strip that sort of just sits in it, and
basically,
and I think that's great, and some people that understand that you can't open it up and take processors out and put things in, and then, for the benefit of that, you've got a sleek machine that works really well. It's it's designed with one bit of hardware in, so because it's got that one bit of hardware in, it'll work one way, and that's all optimized. That's perfect. Rather than having a great big lump of metal under your desk with you turn it on, and it all spins, the lights come on, things like that, and. I think I like one. I like the other as well.
Yeah, Yeah, they're like 90% battery, aren't they? A lot of these laptops, as I say.
Oh, 100%.
Thin little strip, isn't it? The motherboard. But,
yeah.
Yeah, well, there you go. That was a little discussion about home cinemas and NeXT stations, I guess.
No.
But anyway, where can you find us, Stu?
Right, we're on consoleshock.net. You can find us on iTunes if you search Console Shock, or any podcast clients. You can find us on Facebook, Console Shock, YouTube, Console Shock, and Twitter, Console Shock. So great if you can follow us on all of those channels, and tweet us, Facebook us, give us a comment on YouTube, and Trev will reply.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, do all the stuff.
Yeah.
Thumbs in the middle. Yeah. Do they allow that? No, they don't. But yeah,
share.
Give us a Patreon. Give us some Patreons. That's what it's called. That's what they say, isn't it? Give us some Patreons.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Stu, for telling us all the various places you could download our shit. Hopefully people will take heed. But otherwise, thanks for listening, everybody, and we will catch you in the next one. Take care.
Take it easy. Bye-bye.